guys, and we're ready to do the May Kimberbell project, which is the Paisley in Bloom belt bag. It's the little crossbody bag made out of the zippered pouch and then the strapping with the little buckle and everything, the little gold buckle. I'm trying to show the buckle over here. Are you getting it? There you go. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, now what we're going to do, there's actually 2 sets of instructions for this project, and the only difference is what size hoop you have. So if you have like a 7 by 12 or smaller embroidery hoop, you are going to have to multi-hoop the front and the back. So to get this bag embroidered all the way down, you will have to multi-hoop it. Okay, now in your instructions, starting on page basically 1 through 11, that is on how to do the multi-hooping. Okay, so there's 4 design files for those machines. So a 7 by 12 or smaller will have to multi-hoop. The majority of our ladies have an 8 by 12 or larger sewing area. So we decided to go ahead and skip to the 8 by 12 part of the instructions. So we're not going to be multi-hooping in the video. If you have to multi-hoop, you have the instructions that are going to tell you how to do that. And then in the video that we did for the little sampler project, that was multi-hooped. And so you can kind of refer back to that video on how to use the thumbtacks and stuff like that, and it'll make sense. So that's the only difference. The way we do the little openings for the strap and everything is going to be the exact same thing on both sizes. So whether you have the 7 by 12 or smaller or the 8 by 12 or larger, all that's going to be done the same. Hope that makes sense. So we're taking out pages 1 through 11 of the instructions, and we're going to start on page 20, and that's for the 8 by 12 hoops. So this page is just telling us what we're going to need. So as far as our stabilizer, we're going to be using the Aquamesh Plus, or it's the water soluble sticky back stabilizer. And if you're doing the multi-hooping, you're going to need enough for 4 hoopings. If you're doing the 8 by 12 or larger like we are, you're just going to need enough for 2 hoopings. And then we have the bag, the belt strapping and everything. You're going to need 4 pieces of fabric, and it says to cut these 2 by 3.5. These are for the little openings for the belt bag, or the belting to slide into. In the instructions, they did them in a colored fabric. We decided we wanted ours to kind of match the bag a little bit more, so we're doing the off-white fabric. And then we did go ahead and iron some SF101 onto the back of these. It didn't say to in the instructions, but I think that's going to help give it some stability when we start flipping this back and forth and everything. Then you're going to need your Kimberbell tape, your colors of thread. This one's a maybe. I don't know if we're going to use it. We're going to use this color for our flowers. And then I've threaded up with more kind of a khaki beige color that we're going to be doing the quilting and all in. And then you're also going to need thumbtacks if you're doing the multi-hooping. You're going to need some straight pins, some quilt clips, fabric marker, your scissors, stuff like that. So if you want one of those patterns, just let us know and we're going to get those ordered. So we have all of our stuff ready to go. I've hooped up a piece of the water-soluble sticky back. I've already scored the paper, and so we're just going to peel the paper away and then put that on the machine. And then on your USB stick, when you bring up the folder, you're going to have actually 6 designs. So you're going to have the last 4 of them are for the multi-hooping. The first 2 are for the 8 by 12 or larger. Now we're going to be doing the front of the bag first, and so I'm going to be picking this design. It doesn't have these two little blue rectangles there. Those are for the little openings for the strapping. And so we're not going to do that one yet. We're going to just bring up that one and see it's just the quilting and the little flowers and everything. So then we're going to set that. And then what it's going to stitch off first is just a placement line on our stabilizer. And while that's stitching, we're going to move over here and I'm going to show you how to prepare the bag. Okay, so we're on page 21 and we're starting with the instructions up here to get the bag prepped. And so what we're going to do is it says to lay it right side down with the zipper pull. Make sure the zipper's closed and the zipper pull is to the right. And then we're going to take the lining piece of fabric and just fold it up and then go ahead and pin it up here at the top. So that's just pinning the two lining pieces together with the back piece of the bag, getting those out of the way. And then we ironed some SF 101 onto the back of the front of the bag. Now, just for time's sake, here in a little bit, it's going to tell us to iron the SF 101 onto the back of the bag also. So we've already done that. So you're ironing a piece to the back and to the front. So we're going to get the lining pieces out of the way. And then I've stitched the placement line onto the sticky stabilizer. And I did it in that tan color so you can't really... Now we're going to place the bag inside that placement line. So we're going to take it, this is the piece, this is the front piece, the lining is up here, we're going to lay it down so that the zipper pull is at the bottom, and then we're just going to lay this inside that placement line, covering that up, and then just stick it down. And so the bulk of your bag is to the left, the zipper pull is at the bottom, and you just have the front of the bag hooped up. And so what it's going to stitch next, get back over here with the machine, is the tack down. And it... There we go. And then what's going to stitch now is the kind of quilting design, and we're going to do that in the kind of khaki color. And then after that, it's going to stitch the little flowers that we're going to do in the peachy pink color. So this is going to take about 20-25 minutes to stitch. So we're going to go eat lunch while this is stitching, and then we will come back and do the rest of it. So it finished stitching the front of the bag. So now we're just going to unhoop it, and then it says to trim just the stabilizer away from the bag, being careful not to cut the bag. So being careful not to cut the bag. So we removed that stabilizer. Now we're going to need another piece, but we're going to prepare our bag again. So what it's saying to do is lay the bag right side down again, but this time the zipper pull to the left, and then we're just going to fold up the lining up here to the top and pin it out of the way. So we're just getting the back side ready to embroider, and then iron a piece of the SF 101 or the fusible backing to the wrong side of the bag here. And then we need another piece of the water-soluble stabilizer along there. And it cuts it for you. And then holds your stabilizer there nice and neat. So that's what those boxes are. Now I'm just going to hoop up this piece, and then we'll score the paper and tear the paper away, or peel the paper away. Okay, so we're now on part 2, embroidering the back and attaching the straps. And so I've hooped up the stabilizer and peeled the paper away. And then back on your USB stick, now we're going to be pulling up the design that has the 2 holes in it basically for the straps. So this is the back part. So we're going to set that. I've threaded the machine back up with the khaki color, and it's going to stitch the placement line for the back. Okay, so I've stuck a piece of paper back up underneath there so you can see the placement line. And then we're just going to take the bag, the 3 layers, so the 2 lining and the front piece are over, ow, poked myself, over to the left. And the zipper pull is at the top. And then we're just going to lay this part of the bag inside that placement line. Okay, so we've got it stuck down. And then it's supposed to stitch the tack down next, but I think I am going to forward through that tack down part. So we're just going to skip that part. And then it's going to stitch the quilting. So we will come back when it's done doing the quilting and the design. We've got to stitch the quilting and the little flowers. Okay, so it has finished stitching the quilting and the flowers. And so this is on the back part of the bag. I have threaded back up with kind of our khaki color thread. And I'm going to explain your handout if you're here in class. So the first 3 pages are page 20, 21, and 22. And these are the instructions for doing the project in the 8x12, which is what we're doing. But then after those pages, I have gone ahead and I've put pages, get that underneath there, 12 through 19 in your handout, just so that we can refer to the pictures, because these pages have better pictures than what these do. So we are on page 21 here on step 5 down here. So now we're going to stitch the strap hole placement line. So this is just going to be, needle was already threaded. It's going to be a little rectangle. Okay, then we're going to lay one of our pieces of fabric right side down over that placement line. I'm going to clip that thread. And then it's going to stitch the tack down. Okay, and it says to take the hoop off the machine. And okay, so this is basically like we're doing a bound buttonhole. So we're going to cut an opening in here. I went and got a buttonhole little cutter, and so you just take the little block, kind of just a mini rotary mat is what it is, and then I'm just going to go down in, and it says don't cut the stitches, and just rock it back and forth, not exactly in the center, but I'm close to it, and I'm going through everything. Then I can take my little scissors and go up in there and cut to the corner. Then we're going to take that piece of fabric and we're just going to start poking it through that opening. And then we're going to flip the hoop over and we're going to try to get this to lay as straight and flat as possible. Okay, so I've just taken our little pressing mat and put it up, kind of the corner of it, up underneath the hoop, and just pull that lining fabric, you know, over as neatly as possible, and then press it down. And it does have wrinkles in it, but I looked at the picture on their instructions and theirs did too. Okay. And then you could tape that down, or what we're going to do is take the another piece of the lining and lay that right side down on top of that, and then we're going to tape all of that down. And like I said, they're using a contrasting fabric. So they're using like green in the pictures, and we're using the off-white. So it's going to look something like that. And so you're going to see a little bit of that fabric. Okay, so we're back at the machine. I'm not crazy about the way this looks. And remember, we ironed SF101 onto the back of our little lining pieces, okay? What we're gonna do on the next hole, the next opening over here on this side, we're gonna experiment, and we're gonna do this one the way the instructions told us to do. And so we're not gonna iron the SF101 onto the back of the lining pieces, and we'll see which one works best, and we'll let you know. So we're back at the machine. We've got that lining piece taped down over that hole, and then we're going to put the hoop back on the machine, and it's going to stitch a tack down on one side of that opening. Okay, yeah, I think the off-white, I really don't want these stitches to show, so I've threaded up with the off-white, and it's going to stitch that tack down on just part of the opening there, on one side of it. Okay, and in the little kit that has the straps and the buckles and all, there's two pieces of strapping. There's a long piece and a short piece. The first opening here, we're going to be using the long piece, okay? And so what we're going to do is take it, you see, and so it tacked it down here on this bottom side. So we're going to take the strapping and we want to insert about 1/2 inch up into that opening and just make sure it's centered in that. And then what it's going to stitch next is the tack down on the other side. Okay, so now we're just going to do the same thing over on here, this side. It's going to do the placement line first. Okay, since I'm using matching thread, it's hard to see that placement line, so I drew it in with our fabric marker. So there's the placement line. This side, we're going to use the fabric that doesn't have the interfacing. So we're just going to lay it right side down, and then it'll stitch the tack down. Okay, so I've taken it off the hoop. I've laid my little cutting mat underneath there, and then I'm gonna cut this one open. And so we're just doing the exact same thing. This piece of fabric just doesn't have the interfacing on it. Yep. And then cut up to my corners. And I did, and I'll do the same thing on this one, I did go in and trim the bulk of like this seam allowance here to see if it would, you know, turn and press a little bit easier. So I just went in and kind of pulled that up and trimmed some of that seam allowance away. Don't cut your stitches, be careful of that. But that'll just help kind of get some of that bulk out of there. And Bailey just vacuumed and I'm shooting this stuff into the floor. Okay, then you're going to take that and poke it through to the back side again, and then we're going to go to the ironing board and press this down. So let's go over there. Okay, so I've got it flipped to the wrong side, and then I'm just working with it and pressing it down. It's without the interfacing, it is a little less bulky, but I really don't think it's gonna, it looks any different, so I think you can really do it either way. Except this piece on the bottom, I think I do want the interfacing. And my thinking, having the interfacing on this piece, is the strapping is going to be rubbing on this, and I want it to be a little bit heftier. So I'm going to lay that right side down, and then tape that in place. And then we're going to go back to the machine, and watch your strap down here. I was supposed to kind of tape this up out of the way, but I haven't yet, so I'm just have my strap that's attached, and we're going to go back to the machine. Okay, so we've got the hoop back on the machine, and what it's going to stitch now is that first little tack down on one side of the opening. Okay, and this time we're taking the short piece of strapping, and you're going to slide it in from this side underneath there and get it tucked up in there about 1/2 inch, and make sure it's centered, and then it's going to stitch the other side of the tack down. Okay, so that's all there is to the embroidery. So I'm going to take the hoop off the machine, I'm going to unhoop it, and then I'm going to trim the stabilizer away and not trim my bag or my strapping. And then we'll come back and put it together. Okay. We are now on the sewing part, and so it's part 5 on page 14 of the instructions. And so I've set the machine up to go into sewing, and we're on step 1 here. It says to lay the bag right side down with the zipper pull at the top, and then we're going to measure 1.25 inches down from the raw edge here, and we're going to measure across the zipper teeth, or mark across the zipper teeth. So I'm measuring 1.25 inches down, and so we're going to make a mark here, and then down here at the bottom 1.25 inches up, and make a mark here. And then it says to whip stitch, okay, by hand, a stitch across the zipper teeth down here at the bottom. Well, I'm not going to do that by hand, so we're going to come over here to the machine. Okay, so what I'm going to use to whip stitch, my little openings here are basically, we're just creating stops on the zipper so the zipper doesn't open up all the way. So I'm just going into the buttonhole group and I'm choosing the button sew on stitch, and then I went ahead and widened the stitch width as wide as it'll go. It goes up to 4.5 on this machine, and then I'm just still using the regular foot, and I'm just going to stitch right on that mark. We're just, right now, we are just stitching on the mark that's down at the bottom by the zipper stop. Okay, so this is the one at the bottom. And so I'm just going to center that opening, that line where the zipper teeth are. I'm centering that in the foot, and then it's just going to jump back and forth. It just sits in one place. And you can even do it twice. Just let off the foot controller and go again, and then it'll tie off, and then cut your thread, and we've created a stop down there at the bottom, so that way our zipper won't open past that point. Then up here at the top, we're going to open our zipper, make sure that you're pulling it down below where that mark was, okay, that 1 1/4, and then we're going to stitch a little stop up here at the top now. So I'm just flipping it back to the wrong side, put my presser foot down right on that mark, just make sure your zipper teeth are kind of close together, and just stitch a stop right there. And I'm going to do it twice again, so I'm just let off the foot controller and go again. Okay, so we have our stops created. Okay, now it says to open the zipper about halfway, and then we're going to take our straps and kind of just basically fold them and get them up here out of the way so they're not going to be caught in our seams or anything. The Kimberbell tape is way over there. Maybe that'll stay. Okay, now we're going to page 15. And what we're going to do is basically just put the two right sides of the bag together, and then your lining will be right sides together. And you can either pin or clip this, just kind of line up your edges. And then line up your edges of your lining pieces. Okay, then we're gonna have it like this. So our lining is on top. The zipper here, we want to fold the zipper teeth so that the zipper teeth are on the bottom and the zipper tape is on top, and just fold that in half so that it's going to be, so basically your zipper teeth, when we stitch this together, are going to be sewn up into the lining. And then I'm just going to put a pin right in there. Right. And then the same thing over here on this side, fold it so that the zipper teeth are going down towards the bag, and then the zipper tape will be folded up towards the lining. Line them up, and then we'll put a pin right over here. Right. Then we're going to basically just line up all the edges. We're going to stitch all the way around with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and we're going to leave about a 5-inch opening up here at the top on the 2 lining pieces. So we'll stitch all the way around, 3/8 inch of a seam allowance. And I'm going to back stitch here at the beginning and end, so that when we turn it right side out, it won't pull out our stitches. And then just turn and pivot when you get to each corner. Okay, when I got to the zipper tape here, I just made sure that, again, both of the tapes were pushed up towards the lining, and I just stitched right over that. And then when I get down here to the corner, since I need to turn and pivot and still have a 3/8 inch seam allowance, I just took my ruler and fabric marker and measured 3/8 of an inch away from that edge and put a mark. So when I get down there, I can just sew up to that point and then turn and pivot right there, and I'll still have that 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then I did the same thing on this corner down here. Okay, so we're now on step 13, page 15, step 13. It says boxing the corners. So we're going to use our ruler and a fabric marker, and we're going to measure from our seam 3/4 of an inch square. So we're going to find 3/4 of an inch on our ruler and then mark a square. And we're going to do that on each corner. So again, I'm measuring from the seam 3/4 of an inch. And we're going to do that on the lining side and the bag side in each corner. Now, in a minute, we're going to be cutting these corners out. So step 14, what it's saying to do is reinforce the seam here and here for about an inch. So we're going to back stitch a little bit there where I've marked on each side, on each corner, so that when we cut this out, the seam here and here will still be reinforced and it won't come undone. Okay, so what we're going to do now is cut that little box out. So on all 4 corners, like so. Try to cut it straight. Okay, so I've done that on the other 3. So we've cut the squares out. And now we're just going to box the corners. So we're just going to open that up, put it, fold it, put them together, press one seam one direction, one seam the other direction, nestle those seams together right up in there, and then we're going to stitch that closed with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So on the Brother machines, I have the J presser foot on the machine, and so I just went into the quilt group, and then I've selected that stitch number 2, and that moves my needle position over exactly so I can still use the side of my foot and get a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to box all 4 corners. And be sure you do back stitch at the beginning and end of these seams also. Okay, we're now on page 16, step 21. And what it's saying to do is on either side of the zipper tape, we're going to measure 3/4 of an inch from that seam into it, and then it says 1.5 inches long. So what I did is I just measured 3/4 of an inch from either side of the seam where the lining is sewn to the bag. 3/4 of an inch to this side, 3/4 of an inch to that side. Did I do my math right? That is 1.5 inches. Okay. And so we have 1.5 inches by 3/4 of an inch rectangle on both sides. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to reinforce the stitching on either side here. So we're going to back stitch and then sew down about 1 inch on both sides, and then we're going to clip out this rectangle. And when we do that, where I whip stitched, where I did that buttonhole stitch to for the stops on the zipper, it's saying just to make sure that those are not cut off. So those, I kind of went up into my lining and I could see where they were, and I put a mark there with that orange fabric marker, and so I'm going to be cutting just to the inside, to the outside of that whip stitching, so I don't cut those off. So we're going to do our reinforcement stitches right now. Okay, so I've cut the 2 rectangles out, and so when you cut the rectangles out, you're cutting off the ends of the zipper, but the zipper pull is here in the middle because we opened our zipper way while ago. So now we're on step 24 and 25. So it says when you open these up now, you're going to have an opening in the lining and an opening in the bag. And we just want to match these. So we're going to be real careful. There's my stitching, and we're going to make sure, I'm going to do this one first. I think it's a little bit easier because the zipper's closed on this side. We're going to open this up. We're going to match this side seam. I don't know if I can do this and explain it. Okay, do it this way. I'm opening that up, and I'm matching the side seam of the bag to the zipper teeth there. Okay, and then I want my seam to lay the same direction that it is down here. So I'm going to lay it this way. Then we're going to open up this lining part. I'm going to clip this to help hold it for me. Open this one up. There we go. And I want its seam to lay the same way that this one is, so it's going to go this way. So we're just lining all that up like that. Okay, and then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam across there. Be sure you back stitch good because this is pretty thick. Okay, we are now on step 27, page 17. And talk about blind faith here, guys. I don't know what this is going to look like on the inside. So, it says identify the bag boxed corners and your lining boxed corners. Not where they're attached here. So, end to end. We're going to take these, the bag boxed corner and the lining boxed corner, and we're going to match those. And then it says to stitch between the raw edge and the seam allowance. So basically you're going to be sewing an 1/8 inch seam. And then you're going to have to do the same thing over on this side. So you're just going to have to squish the bag together and bring the lining box corner and the bag box corner together. So you're going to end up with a big old ball like this. So just make sure when you're stitching this, it's an 1/8 inch seam. So you're stitching in between the seam and the raw edge. Okay, so I now have a ball. So now, step 32, it says to turn the project through the opening in the lining. Okay, so there's my opening. Carefully turn that through there. Okay, it's making sense. And it actually looks halfway decent. I think I'm okay so far. Okay, then we're gonna stitch this little opening. So I'm just going to tuck in the edges, and I'm going to do a little straight stitch with the machine here, right? Yep, stitch the opening shut. Okay, so I have the opening sewn shut, and so now it says to turn it right side out through the zippered opening. So I'm going to open up my zipper, hopefully. There we go. That's amazing. I'm impressed. Okay, so what I'm going to do now before we go on to get the strap and everything, I'm just going to work with my corners, kind of box them, and I'm going to press it real good. And then we will do the strap. Okay, we are now on page 18. So, step 38. So we're placing our bag on the table with the right side of the project. Zipper pull is to the left, the short strap is to the left, and the long strap is to the right. And, well, take the long end strap, and you're going up into the slot. Basically, you're just weaving it through there. And then down through that side. And then it says to slide it so that it's about 1 foot away from the end, and so I marked me 12 inches right there, so I've got that slid to there. Okay, then it says to take the buckle and undo it, and we're going to take this part, and it says insert the end of the long strap through the indicated, so it's coming up into the one on the right. Then we're going to bring it back through this one. And then we're bringing it to this one, and we're bringing it up in through there, and then in through there. Okay, it says to put the bag over your shoulder and determine where you want the buckle to go and everything. So we're using our mannequin as our dummy, basically. So you're going to put it over your shoulder, have the bag kind of in front of you, like that, I guess. And then this strap is going to come around the side, and then it said determine where you want the outer buckle to go. So I'm going to say about right there, I guess. And then I'm going to put a pin right there. Okay, so I've marked, this is where my pin was, and I have the outer buckle up onto, and this is the shorter strap, and it says to cut the strap 2 inches longer than your desired length. So I'm going to make another mark there and draw me a line and cut on that line. It says to put some fray preventive or fray check on the end. And I need to do that on the other end also. I think we're going this way. So fold up a 1/2 inch and then another half. So this is folding it to basically the wrong side. And then slide the buckle down here about 1 inch away, and then so it's folded up like that, and then we're going to stitch across that. So we're just going to top stitch this down, but I wanted to show you something. See how my presser foot, see how crooked it's sitting? Well, that's what this little black spring on the J-foot on your Brothers and Baby Locks, that's what that's for. So what you do is you raise the presser foot up and then push that little black spring in, make sure it goes all the way in, keep that pushed in, and then I'm using the freehand system to lower my presser foot down, and when you lower it down, it keeps the foot flat. and that helps you get up and over those thick seams. And now we're just going to top stitch. I'm going to back stitch good here at the beginning and end, and it just keeps that foot level. And we've got that stitched. Flip our threads. And it's done. Now we just have to put it on our little mannequin again. There we go. Strap it on her. Buckle it. And there you go. Pretty cute.